was going to stick with you, Harriet, on this one as well. Is how would you go about explaining some of these changes to your clients, but also your teams internally, to explain why they need to take these extra steps?
I think for me it's kind of explaining the why they're coming in. I think if we can get people to understand the why, then often people will get behind the change. Um,
Mm.
and there is a real, and we talked about this before, but there is a real why, and it's not that we're doing company's house job, it's that we're part of the same team. We've got the same mission, we've got the same goals, and again, we're here to protect society from fraud, money laundering, whatever it might be. And we want to make it, and I hope everybody on the call would agree, we want to make the environments that we all live a safer environment. And so for me, it's getting behind that why. And often the best way to do that, if we're getting people on that journey with us, is to share stories that are topical. So for me, there is an example. If I was delivering this in the town where I live, there was one street where 80 companies were set up by a Chinese national. They were all fictitious. The gentleman who was actually in the paper absolutely knew nothing about them, and that was the same for all the houses on the street. And so it's literally in my town. It's not a very big place, and you just wouldn't imagine and wouldn't dream of it. And I think once you start sharing those stories and finding, and there's lots out there, and if you don't already, there's a gentleman called Graham Barrow who's hugely behind promoting some of these like cases, and he's very passionate and a great person. If you're looking for these use cases and case stories as to why this change is so important, then you won't go far wrong looking at the things he's talking about. But for me, that's the big that a bit makes the big difference is the why. Why are these coming? Why is it happening? Why is the government passionate? Why is Mark in the role he's in? And again, super passionate in our pre-conversations in making this happen.
Yeah, no, I agree, Howard. I think, as I mentioned earlier, I think these requirements have been long overdue on the public register. If I'm honest, they're probably 10 years too late. Yeah. So I've been in intelligence enforcement and working with law enforcement for the last perhaps 12, 15 years. And when I started that role, there was a clamour for registrar to change the way that she sort of ingested information. And I think whilst the transitional period of getting your clients identity verified or your existing clients on the public record identity verified, get an ACSP set up, yeah, there's a cost, there's a change. It's going to be a pain. But I think once we start thinking out the other side of transition and we get into a more BAU state, I think the register will be more accurate, it'll be more trusted. The people getting onto the register will be real people. There may be still, rogues within that, and but we have more powers to be able to deal with that. We have better intelligence, better data analytics to be able to identify it, and we'll get better and better at refusing incorporations and refusing registrations, and retrospectively clean them up as well. But I think it's been a long, long overdue that the registrar starts to sort of know more about the people that she's allowing onto the public record.